Hello everyone, we have one more day to go till Judgment Day. Well, Brexit Judgment Day. Tomorrow, Saturday, which is going to be called Super Saturday, Parliament is going to be sitting to vote on the new Brexit deal that Boris Johnson has negotiated. Now, since yesterday, we've had a chaos of misinformation going around from both the Remain side and the Brexit side. So we're going to tell you about the facts of the situation and also the current situation with the number of votes and MPs in Parliament and how many Boris Johnson actually needs. And also to tell you that tomorrow, Saturday, we're going to do a special episode, live stream the whole kind of show from Westminster outside Parliament, which means we're going to be hopefully interviewing some of the Remainers who are going to be protesting, but also we're going to have some guests from the Brexit side. So keep watching. I think it should be on around 12 o'clock or half 12, but I'll keep you guys updated. So let's go and talk about what's actually happened. So as you know, firstly, before we start, as you all know, I'm a WTO Brexiteer. I preferred no deal Brexit because of the way the EU have treated us since 2016 and even before that. And at the same time that obviously the Remain Parliament made it very difficult throughout the whole process to get that done. So this is a situation where Boris Johnson had to negotiate a deal, otherwise the Remainers would have completely stopped Brexit altogether. Now, in terms of misinformation, obviously there is both sides are everything's very heated in terms of the debate, and the problem is people are getting their news and their facts from individuals or groups that they emotionally trust or like, and say, well, that person said this, that means I'm just gonna that's the truth, instead of doing their own research. Now, whatever I say in terms of the debate, the deal, even if I tell you that this deal is terrible or if this deal is amazing, I don't want you to just say, well, Maya said it and that's it. Do your own research as well to find out, read the actual deal to see what you think of it yourself, instead of, for example, the issue I have is things like this. There are a lot of graphics going around with bullet points or vague sentences, and people basically just believe them. Now, in terms of the deal, before we get to this, I'm going to talk about the actual situation. So there are two aspects. One is the withdrawal agreement, and one is the political declaration, which is it's non-binding compared to the withdrawal agreement, which is a treaty. And which goes back to the whole issue. A lot of people are complaining, saying that I didn't vote for a treaty. This is a bad deal because it's a treaty. Okay, so every single international agreement that's ratified is a treaty. It's just called a treaty. That's just the name. Even a free trade deal that we want with America and the rest of the world, they're called treaty. This exists, the withdrawal agreement exists because of Article 50. When you want to leave as a member of the European Union, you have to obviously go through the divorce aspects, and so that exists. So the reason the deal is not perfect is not because it's a treaty, it's because it's not perfect. And the deal is not perfect, just like Theresa May's deal. And there have been some changes to the current renegotiated deal, which is primarily focused on the Irish border and the backstop. When it comes to the withdrawal agreement, there are primarily three aspects. One is the citizens' rights when it comes to the existing EU citizens here and the UK citizens in Europe, which both sides already agreed. And there's the payment, the £39 billion, which is basically what we kind of owe. Initially, they were going to ask for £100 billion, which was absolutely crazy. So we brought it down. Then the second aspect, which is the Irish border, the backstop, which all the issues were created. That's renegotiated and actually is fine. Even the DUP agree to the principle of the New Deal. We're going to talk about that in a minute. The third aspect is actually everything that's slightly tied to the EU, but not really, is for the transition period. Now, a lot of people who have issues with the deal, their issue is actually for the transition period, which is going to end at the end of 2020. Now, a lot of people assume that just because we're semi-tied, that means we're going to accept new laws and everything else. It's not true. We're going to keep certain regulations as it is, and we're going to slowly fade them out. So we're going to talk about this. Let's look at the graphic that we have. Things like this are going around a lot. So they say the money. Obviously, we already explained the money part. The laws, regulatory alignment. So this is, as I said, it's basically it's nonsense, because once we leave at the end of this month, we're going to be out of the customs union, out of the single market and the European Court of Justice, which means there are not going to be any new laws imposed onto us. We're going to keep some of the existing ones, and fade them out until the end of the transition period. Trade, the level playing field and balance. Again, as I said, we're going to be out of the single market and the customs union, which means we can actually sign our own trade deals with the rest of the world. Obviously, if you want to trade with Europe, which even the WTO Brexiteers who want to have a free trade agreement with Europe, you still have to basically agree to their kind of standards anyway. Everything, as you can see, security and that's the other thing. A lot of people have issues with or without a deal. There are a lot of alignments that we've made with when it comes to military stuff, and that even if you vote down this deal, that's kind of exists because that's outside the EU. The military alignment with Europe is kind of slightly separate to the rest of the European Union. It's kind of like the NATO, but this is going to be renegotiated on a NATO level because NATO is superior, and that's the job of the Ministry of Defence after Brexit. It goes back to the United Kingdom becomes Britain, and Northern Ireland is not going to be part of it. As you can see, there's fishing and farming and everything. So Northern Ireland, the problem with Theresa May's deal was that yes, Northern Ireland would have been separated essentially because it would have stayed in the EU customs union, whereas with this new deal, it's going to be part of the UK customs territory. We're going to be one United Kingdom, and as I said, even the DUP backed it. Now, this current deal is backed by the hardline Brexiteers, the ERG Conservative MPs, the DUP, a lot of the Brexit Party people, supporters, and even Aaron Banks and a number of others. The problem that the DUP have, who are not going to be voting for the deal tomorrow, has nothing to do with with these sort of things that we talked about. The issue that they have is the consent. Is the situation where if there's no free trade deal by the end of the transition period, and if the transition were to be extended, and there are hints that that won't be extended, which means we're going to be on WTO terms anyway, their issue is that the Northern Ireland Assembly have to democratically vote for or against the extension. And but the DUP, party political games, they want to have a special veto on top of it, and that's just it's a DUP issue, nothing to do with anything else. Otherwise, the DUP backed the rest of the deal anyway. So that's the fact. Now, let's talk about the situation with the rest of the Brexit scenario. Fishing. A lot of people are concerned about fishing and our waters, and the Scottish Fishermen's Federation have clarified this because they are backing this deal. The SFF today welcomed the agreement reached between the UK and the European Union to secure the UK's exit from the EU. 3 years since the referendum, this agreement provides the gateway to the EU's exit from the common fisheries policy and the UK becoming an independent coastal state. Elspeth MacDonald, the CEO of the SFF, said that more than 3 years after the referendum, we hope that Saturday marks the turning point when we can move to the next stage, working towards a sea of opportunity that exists outside the EU's common fisheries policy and being able to redress the imbalance where 60% of fish caught in UK waters are not caught by the UK fleet. They go on by talking about what's going to happen next year. It is imperative that the implementation period does not extend beyond the end of 2020, and this is what the government's already hinted anyway, and that negotiations on the future free trade agreement between the UK and EU do not make any concessions on access to UK waters, which is the whole point of this withdrawal agreement. Because whilst this is imperfect, because we're going to have all these kind of certain things during the transition period, one, after the transition period is going to be done. Two, literally from the 1st of November, we will be out. We will be a sovereign country out of single market, ECJ, customs union. Three, all these battles, all these debates and arguments about the future arrangements, but also the future of the country, the United Kingdom, is then up to all the political parties, the Brexit Party, the Conservatives, Labour and everyone else. They now have the opportunity, because we're getting our parliamentary sovereignty back. It is now up to them to stand for election, to create policies and manifestos, win, and then they can shape it. They could do whatever they want. So if we have a party that wants to give our waters to the EU, they can win and do it. If there's a party that wants to secure our waters, they can do that too. But after the transition period, we'll be completely out of it anyway. So all this fear-mongering, ignore that. Now, the other issue is the protocol of Northern Ireland, this extension stuff, because a lot of people say it's basically like the backstop. No, it's not permanent, and Geoffrey Cox, the Attorney General, has now confirmed that. The government's lawyer confirmed that the protocol can be terminated. The government has released its legal position endorsed by the Attorney General after having studied the new withdrawal agreement for the first time. Cox has agreed that the protocol on Northern Ireland can be terminated, so the DUP should see this as a big win. Cox's last Brexit legal advice effectively sank May's deal on the third go, and because they would not compromise his professional standing by saying that the backstop could be escaped when in reality it could not. Whereas in this case, it's the exact opposite. And here you can actually read the full judgment yourself later on, and you can decide for yourself. Which means, whilst the DUP have said already that they can't back it, this judgment just came out a couple of hours ago, so the DUP have some time till tomorrow to read it and reconsider their position on backing the deal. Now, at the same time, when it comes to actually getting the vote in Parliament, there are a lot of Labour MPs and Remainers and also soft Brexiteers, hard Brexiteers from all sides who are switching. And there are a number of reasons. Hard Brexiteers are switching because they fear that Brexit might not actually happen if this deal fails. The soft Brexiteers and Remainers are doing it because yesterday we had Juncker coming out and saying that he hinted that there won't be any extension. Obviously, it's not really up to him, but he hinted. And today we had Emmanuel Macron saying, I'm not going to predict the future, but I don't think we should grant any further delay. Again, he says that a lot, we can't really trust him, but there is a trend. Next is Leo Varadkar of Ireland. Varadkar says that MPs voting tomorrow would be mistaken to assume that there would be the necessary unanimity in the European Council for a Brexit extension. So again, that's the Irish Prime Minister saying that there's no guarantee, but there is a trend. I think the European Council and the countries in the European Union are going around and preparing for this scenario. So this bluff is switching some of the Labour votes, but at the same time, there's no guarantee. So Brexiteers are still going to be voting for the deal in case that's a bluff. Because if they don't actually go with what they say, Brexit's not going to happen, at least now. This is the reason hard Brexiteers like Aaron Banks and Leave.eu are also backing the deal. Leave.eu have said that they would prefer a purer Brexit, but they back this deal against another delay and more Remainer plots to thwart Brexit altogether. They've also said that let's get Brexit done and prepare for round two. And they're right, because as I said, round two matters even more than now, because after the withdrawal agreement, the actual debate really starts. Now, this situation has now split the Brexit party, allegedly, because, as I said, the hardline Tory Brexiteers, ERG, the DUP in principle, even Leave.eu, all the kind of the majority of Brexiteers are essentially, even the ones that are WTO Brexiteers like myself, are considering compromising because there's the next stage and we can fix whatever is happening with the withdrawal agreement. They're backing it, apart from Nigel Farage's team. And this is the situation with the Brexit Party. Nigel Farage tweeted against the deal yesterday, and the Brexit Party supporters and members have hit back. One tweet said, Nigel, what are you on about? Surely you can't be serious. To delay could mean we will never leave. Another tweet said, you need to swallow some pride and get behind this, Nigel. We're not going to get a more Brexit PM than Boris, and as much as I would like a clean Brexit, this deal is a compromise we can live with. You talking up an extension looks very weird, no matter how good your intentions. Another tweet said, whose side are you on, Nigel? This deal or no deal is fine by me. Jacob Rees-Mogg has already confirmed that Saturday vote will be deal or no deal. Let Parliament vote it down, then we are out. Last thing we want is for the EU to grant another extension for a loser's vote. Now, the Guido Fawkes website also reports that allegedly there are around 6 Brexit Party MEPs out of 28 who might be considering backing this deal. Now, yesterday we had Lance Foreman MEP, the Brexit Party MEP, who's already said that he would be supporting Boris's deal anyway. And obviously, as this news came out, Nigel Farage's team have said that this is not true. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see what they're reality is. Well, whilst the majority of Brexiteers are backing the deal for different reasons, because some people are afraid that Brexit's not going to happen, the others are just fine with the compromise because we can fix and win the actual debate in the next round, because this is just the divorce part and the real negotiation starts on the 1st of November. Remainers are kicking off for different reasons. One is Alistair Campbell.
2 seconds left. What do you think about Labour MPs who are considering voting for Boris Johnson's deal?
I think this deal is the most un-Labour
but what about
deal
them doing
imaginable.
it?
I don't want them to do it. How can they do it when they should ask themselves, why is Steve Baker happy? Why is Rees-Mogg happy?
Well,
because actually this is another route to no deal at the end of 2020.
And on that, that's all.
Well, that's the whole situation. So obviously Alistair Campbell is a political expert. He's been in politics, he worked in government, and he knows his stuff technically, just like how some people on the Brexit side are also experts and know their stuff. But this is the whole issue, because when an expert in any area tells you something, most of the time it comes from a personal perspective and an agenda, and it's not always objective. And this is the whole issue, as I said earlier in the video. Just because someone says something to you or give you bullet points or graphic doesn't mean it's true fully. It could be semi-true, it could be untrue completely. And for example, in today's video, I just provided you with the facts. I'm not even going to tell you right now that you have to definitely hate the deal or love the deal, because you can't just get it from one person. You have to have your own judgment. But at the same time, this is the situation we have with the deal, and it's a compromise, and we could actually fix it. It is not the end of the world, and stop calling it a treaty. Every agreement is a treaty anyway. So let's move on to how Boris could actually win this vote, because he doesn't have a majority. So Theresa May's deal was voted on 3 times. The first time it was lost by 230 votes, the second time 149, and the final time 58. Now Boris needs 320 votes to win this vote. He already has secured 287 votes from the Conservative MPs, so he needs 33 extra votes. Now, there are 20 former Tory MPs who were expelled, and only about 3 or 4 of them who won't actually be voting with the government, so that's about 16 or 17 potential votes. There are also 19 Labour MPs who have already indicated that they would be voting for the deal, and then there's a kind of few other independent MPs who we don't know yet, and they might technically back it. So Boris doesn't actually need the DUP, but at the same time, as I said, Geoffrey Cox's judgment on the Northern Ireland Protocol could change it. So by tomorrow, don't be surprised if the DUP either vote for the deal or abstain. But I know they could be stubborn, but this judgment should be able to help them. Now, speaking of the experts and people who are familiar with their profession and their work, because they are in it all the time, every day, and people assume that they know the facts. Another one is the deputy of the Liberal Democrats, the MEP in Brussels, who doesn't know anything about the deal.
The UK.
How will our transport be disrupted by this deal?
Look, we're still looking at customs borders here.
No, we're not.
Boris Johnson said that no Conservative government could countenance having a border down the Irish Sea, but that's exactly what he has put forward.
How will transport be affected by this deal?
There will still be disruption because because you'll still have lorries queuing up potentially.
How? I mean, this is ludicrous. I mean, you're deputy leader of the Liberal Democrats. Yeah. You ought to know that under this deal, there will be no disruption at Dover and Calais at all.
Well, I've spoken to colleagues in the European Parliament from other European countries who say that, yes, there will be disruption.
But how? You just accept their word, do you? You don't actually ask for the detail of how that would be?
Well, the point is, we may not feel the impact immediately.
No, the point is that you have indulged in scaremongering by trying to maintain that there will be transport disruption when you have no evidence for that whatsoever.
There is still going to be a border for Northern Ireland, even if it isn't on the island of Ireland. That is a form of disruption because you're taking us out of the customs union.
Well, Northern Ireland is staying in the customs union.
Well, yeah.
So why should there be any disruption to trade to Northern Ireland then?
Because you're removing the freedom of access that there is at the moment.
No, you're not. Because Northern Ireland is staying in the customs union, so that there is no...
A version of it, but the details haven't been worked out, and it's not clear.
They're staying in the single market and the customs union. I'm very surprised you don't know that.
But you can't be half in, half out, and this is the problem with this lack of clarity. I mean...
I suggest that after we finish this interview, you go and read the actual agreement, because you clearly haven't done so, otherwise you would have been able to answer these questions.
And that's the issue. The majority of people who are basically against the deal now, apart from the ideologues and the ones that are just want a pure no-deal Brexit at any cost, even if the economy goes down or whatever. I mean, it won't really long term. The rest of them are basically doing it for party political reasons or for tribal reasons, just because they like this party or they like that individual, that person is their hero, and they're just back whatever they say. And this is the problem with the Lib Dems and Remainers. So as I said, tomorrow we're going to be doing a live stream. I think we're going to start the live stream at 12:30, and we're going to be interviewing some of the Remainers who are going to be marching, and also we're going to have some guests, and we're going to continue the live stream. We'll come back around 3 o'clock when MPs start voting for the deal. So we'll be right outside Parliament, and we'll give you the close kind of insight in what's actually happening in Westminster. As always, if you want to get your Brexit t-shirts and everything, we've got the merchandise, the hats and mugs, find the link in the description. If Brexit actually happens tomorrow, I'll be creating a new Brexit t-shirt design saying Independence Day for the 31st of October. So prepare for your victory parties on the 31st of October. And if you want to follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram, links, you could find them down here. As always, don't forget to subscribe and click on a bell next to it so you get notified when I release a new video. Videos come out every day, 5:45 p.m. and we've got live Q&As at Sundays, 8 p.m. UK time. I'm Tousi, and I'll see you tomorrow with a live stream.